the minutes for July 24th and September 4th. Mira has been on vacation, and so she did not receive the comments. So I'm going to move that we do those minutes at our next agenda. I'm going to go on to item number 4, departmental updates, and I see Colleen is coming at some point. So,
well, we have Cam.
so I know we have Cam. Yeah.
Lori will be coming down in a minute. She's wrapping something up.
Yeah. Okay. So if you'd like to join us, Cam.
Sure.
I'm not. Yeah, I know you're relatively new to this.
Yes.
This committee. So, do you want to introduce ourselves?
Should I?
You're okay if we have our name played.
Yeah. Sure. A quick introduction would be good, actually.
Okay, I'll just go around the table and start. I'll start with Steve.
Roy, Ron the new.
Paul B. Brown.
Patty Anderson, Cape Paradise.
Mary Shaw.
Frank Weedy.
Peter Wade.
And I'll just introduce Cam. Cameron's he's our treasurer. He was our assistant treasurer for a year and a half.
Yeah, about a year and a half.
And he had some experience in Wallfleet prior to that. So he's doing Paul, I think.
Yes.
Started appointed our treasurer.
Very new.
Welcome.
Great.
Rachel Nicholson, our assistant finance director, has been working with him as far as onboarding and some getting up to speed on some things. But he's going to go through, tell you everything he's learned in the last couple of months as how his office operates, and I'm sure he'll take any questions you have as well.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm gonna go kind of quickly. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but just a word.
Just go through it. Yeah.
Okay.
Devin is up there. Let's just share it. There you go.
There it is. Great. Okay, as Rich mentioned, my first government job was at Barnstable Superior Court. I worked in the criminal department, and then I ran all their finances. I was the head account clerk there for about 4 years. And then my first town job was with Wellfleet as their town treasurer for about a year and a half. And I applied to be the assistant treasurer collector here. So I wanted to get that collector experience. And then Maya Golding left about a year and a half after that. So I took the position and just got started. I did get my master's. You can go to the staff updates. Just kind of giving you an update because we had some movement, obviously. My background, I mentioned, I do have my master's in public administration. I got from Suffolk in 23, and I have my procurement certification, which I got in 24, and I just got certified as a treasurer, technically assistant treasurer, because I don't have 3 years experience as a treasurer yet, but it's the same test, so they'll just change my certification once I hit that milestone. I've been here for, about 2 years, over 2 years now. And we posted my position. Obviously, Stacy Wadey was the person who ended up getting it. She was an internal candidate from our planning department. She's great. She has an accounting background. She loves working with numbers. That's really what she missed. That's why she applied for the position. So she just started about a month ago. And then Brian, who you may or may not know, is our payroll and benefits person, the third person in our office. And he's on vacation now, but he's still doing great in that position. He's been here for about 5 years. And Brian's also trained to handle any departmental money that comes in and tax payments.
Excuse me, Ken, before you proceed on to the rest of it, do you want people to ask questions while you go, or do you want people to wait until the end?
You can feel free to just ask a question, chime in whenever you want. But if it's a more detailed question, I'm happy to follow up through individually and share kind of more detailed about the process that we'll be going over right now. The first slide is just kind of an overview of all the money that we take in. That's obviously one of our main jobs. We take tax payments, that's electronic and in person and through the mail. And then we get aid payments, grant reimbursements, and then pass-through payments, like the money we take out of people's pay checks and give to other vendors, like for private accounts and insurance. And yeah, move on to the main part. I'll be talking about the tax collection process, kind of separately, the real estate, then personal property, and then motor vehicle and both. And then after that, I'll briefly explain our reconciliation processes for cash receivables and the withholdings reconciliations. So if you want to go to the next slide, actually you can skip to right to real estate tax collection. One more, yeah. So real estate taxes, this is just a basic overview, as I said, of the tax process, kind of beginning from end in our office. So we send them on a semi-annual basis. The assessors have to officially commit the taxes over to us. That gets it going in our office, and then we create the tax bill file in our financial software units. And that's what we send to our printer, Kirkwood. So we're doing that really right now for the first half. We try to get them out by October 1st and April 1st, and they're due a month later. And we're about to hit our busy time with tax collection, obviously, so we'll be getting a lot of tax payments in person. And then our two lockboxes also receive payments, the online one and the mail-in lockbox in Boston, where most people send their payments if they use the remit slip that comes with the bills. And the interest starts the day after the due date. That's statutory. There's nothing about that. And after the bills are past due for a certain amount of time, we will issue demands after the second half, when that's still due. And then after the demands are issued, we follow that up with another letter, just to remind people that they still haven't paid. And then we follow that up with another letter from our tax title attorneys, our tax attorney. Yeah, tax title attorneys, Coppola and Coppola. And then we actually take the properties, we place a lien on the properties, if at that stage they still haven't paid. And that's what's called tax taking, tax title, which you're all aware of. And the final step, should the town choose to take that step, would be foreclosure.
And who's the title attorney?
Coppola and Coppola is our tax title attorneys, yes.
And just add that at the end there, that's kind of sequence that Cam kind of went over is really the most sensitive part of the collection process. So it's really important that we issue the demands timely so that we'll know we're on top of it. And we do get a lot of response to them. Sometimes unhappy because they have to pay the extra fee related to the demand, but it does get people to come out. And then it costs us money and time and effort to go through the tax lien process. So we'd rather not, we'd rather get the collection. But after the demand and after some follow-up letters, it's really important to be acting quick. Tax lien that affects our interest in the property and our ability to collect. So if somebody were to skip town or move to a different state, it's hard to transfer we can't transfer the property once there's a lien on it. All the closing would be held up until that money was settled. That's part of the closing. So that's why the lien is so important. And then, but once a year, from that, we consider a foreclosure process, and we probably will have one this year. It's an unbuildable lot, piece of land that has some potential value for the town, and even if it didn't have a value to the town, we don't want. It's only like $3,000 or $4,000, I think, of tax owed. But you don't want the value of the tax owed to get too much beyond the value of the parcel, right? And so in this case, that's something we take, but we do have some considerations. We're not going to be throwing anyone out of the house that lives there year round. That's a housing issue. And so those are some of the things that we think about, but we do present the list to the select board annually with a recommendation on anything to foreclose, so they're aware of any potential issues. That's really only about how many liens that are so severe that they have a potential foreclosure issue.
Maybe couple thousand. Yeah, not even one dozen, yeah.
So very few.
And you've gone over this before, but the process is rather lengthy between, you issue the bill, you don't start to nag them until the second bill is due. And then you have a period of time before you put the lien on it. And then they also have the ability to pay the taxes and just get out of it. We start all over again, right?
And during the process, they do have the opportunity to pay the taxes, yes. All the, the lawyers' fees, the court costs and other posting notice costs would all be added to the account right when those things happen, so they'd be paying all those fees as well. But as each step happens throughout the process, at least, one account will pay. Notified, more people realize when they see the attorney's letter that they think that's a lot more serious than the letter from the town, so at that stage we will pay, but
What's the timeline on the demand notice? That's still a couple weeks, is that so?
yeah,
A couple weeks after the due date, the second, the May 1st date.
The second, so it's the second payment, not the first one that they're doing. They're doing on the first one, but they don't get the demand until the second.
right, and then the tax take, that whole process, like, we would aim to file the tax taking around November. So it's not, from a May 1st due date, we would hope to be filing those takings by November.
On November 1st, how many delinquents do you have at that point?
On November 1st, on the due date?
Yeah.
Hundreds,
Oh, hundreds. Okay.
yeah.
No, I didn't see these like the subsequent November. So how many would we actually be leading? Tax liens.
No, actually, I was curious on.
Oh,
I mean,
That's a good question, I can give you the exact
because
number.
the interest kicks in at that point.
Right, yeah, but there are still hundreds.
Okay.
I know some towns do quarterly taxes. Has that ever been discussed here, or did we ever do it here and not doing it because it's perhaps cheaper to do it semi-annually, or
I'm not
what
sure.
are the
if
thoughts
it's-
on that?
I'm not sure if it's brought up. I've never worked in a quarterly tax community. I know that if it is quarterly, the first two halves are preliminary based on the prior year.
Mm,
And then the second two quarters are actual.
mm,
no, I do consider it.
mm.
Orleans is quarterly. It is easier in a sense in that those first two bills you can just send out. You don't have to worry about getting your tax rate set or having what's called the tax rate recap certified and complete. So it's easier in that respect. And it's also better in the sense of cash flow. Because the first bill is July 1.
You get the money earlier.
Yeah.
Which you can,
Well,
interest rates these days.
Historically, we've been, since I've been here anyway, very good about getting the tax bills out early. Also, there's a benefit to it. A lot of people appreciate it. They might have been working over the summer, so that's when they have the money, snowbirds, and they're going away. So it's just nice to get it out of the way. So we got a lot of prepayments by sending the bills out early, which helps with our cash flow. Since other than the first year I was here, I think we had to borrow short-term, a small amount of money because the cash flow was
Not to cover.
but since then, we've been able to not have to borrow short-term. So it hasn't been a
Good point,
problem.
Mary.
And it does change, it's been a while since I've thought about it, I guess, but it's impactful to the resident or property taxpayers escrow accounts if they have a mortgage.
Yeah.
Oh, the bank, yeah.
Yes.
And so the timing of that is an adjustment, so it'll-
But with the taxes, all the time about taxes going up in the town, having a quarterly bill.
Fred, can you speak up a little
It
bit?
might be a little less
Thanks.
of a burden for people to pay. They may,
it does come at a cost instead of, twice a year, you got people coming in potentially.
Mm,
So we still get quite a few people coming in.
We do.
The nature of our residents. And you're only sending I'm not sure what the cost is, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head, but. We send
to do
out-
quarterly versus
send out two
semi-annual.
bills.
Yeah.
6,000 bills twice a year.
Right,
or
right.
6,000 bills four times,
Right, right.
there's a cost.
But what would the residents think or prefer? Because obviously if you're paying 4 times a year, what you're paying is a lot less than when you pay half. It's not adding up the same amount, but you're dividing it by 4 rather than 2.
Yeah.
So it's a smaller amount that you pay when you do pay.
If you're not on if you have a mortgage, it's in an escrow, so you don't see it too much, but there will be an adjustment. On
Yeah.
the first year. If you're not have a mortgage, then yeah, you're right. Or, if you want to pay us money ahead of time.
Oh, yeah, you'll always take it.
Speaking on the flip side of it, I came from 20 years in a community where it was 4 times a year. And it's 4 times a year that you have to worry and make sure that it's there, make sure it's timely. I plug bills into my calendar to remind myself, so my strong preference, it is less.
Mhm.
It is, you do pay less, but you still end up paying
Oh, you
the
pay
full amount.
Yeah, right, just
So,
pay four installments versus two.
And I would think it would be way less work intensive for our staff.
I really have to evaluate, we'd have to evaluate staffing if you.
Yeah, I think it would cost way more to get them out 4 times a year.
So building off Kate's question, I have a place in Florida. They bill once a year. Would that be awful for us?
Other than the state doesn't allow that.
Is that a possibility? I didn't know that. So we have to bill at least twice a year.
We have, I think it's 3, maybe 4 options, but 3 I can think of off the top of my head. One is semi-annual like we are, one
Right.
is quarterly,
Right.
like Orleans. And the third is what's called preliminary semi-annual. So there is an option, which I actually considered in another town, are still semi-annual. But instead of waiting till your tax rate is set and sending the bill out on October 1 due November 1, you can send out a preliminary first bill based on the prior year.
Right.
Just like the quarterly, and you can do that earlier. But, so that's better in a sense for cash flow for us,
Mhm.
but worse in a sense, I guess it's probably only a problem once, because you're gonna see the impact regardless at one point or another, but the second bill tends to be, it's not equivalent, because the
Right,
first bill is the
right.
estimate from the prior year.
One's based
You
on the
gotta make-
prior year and the
So you gotta
second one's
make up
based
the
on the
whole
current year.
amount, the second year, the second
That's a
payment,
big jump.
so that jump looks bigger than
Right,
what it
right.
really is, so.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
I have another,
No,
oh, excuse me.
That's fine. Second best answer is always in.
Okay,
I have another question. The 14%, is that a state?
yes, yeah, so it's set by the state. Interest rates are a problem right now, actually, we won't get into it, but the tax title interest rate was changed. And they didn't change the regular interest rate, so it's almost beneficial for people to go into tax title.
I guess the other thing we should mention, Ken, is, before we go to personal property, is, we're pretty adamant about putting things, we lien everything that's outstanding. Once it gets to the lien and our interest in the collection is perfected, then Ken, as the treasurer, does have the discretion to enter into payment agreements with people. As long as it's gonna be beneficial, right? So we can't have a 5-year payment agreement, because the next year's taxes are it's just gonna get worse, but anything that, can deliver payment within 9 to 12 months. So you don't get further behind every year is something that we can do, something that's been leaked.
What's the percentage of people that are actually paying these are out of their checking accounts as opposed to people who have escrow accounts, with it attached to their mortgage?
I would have to figure out how to get that number.
It's a curiosity thing,
Right.
because I would think that you would have less to worry about with the people whose mortgages.
Oh, definitely.
If the bank is paying versus. the
Exactly,
individual.
exactly.
A lot of the, well, not a lot. A handful of mortgage companies send us a file along with
Yeah,
wired money.
yeah.
So CoreLogic is the biggest one, which includes Cape Cod 5, but many other banks, so they'll wire us $5+ million and then send us a file that we can upload just as like a lockbox to the system rather than entering all those payments. So those are definitely a lot easier. But yes, anybody who comes in will re-enter manually.
Yeah, so it's just the clarity piece for people who might be listening from the public, that not every single person in town is having to get out their checkbook twice a year.
Right, exactly.
And the other thing is, because we hear this from time to time, people complaining about sending it to Waltham or whatever it is.
Right.
That lockbox saves the town money. Imagine having to receive the mail in the office, 6,000 bills or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for this, yeah.
And so we can't
Real
get that
estate,
number, and we can get back to you what it is, but I'd say the very large percentage gets sent to the lockbox. That's not, those that aren't in escrow, the vast majority of them are sent to the lockbox, which means that we don't have to have staff opening envelopes,
Yeah.
processing payments.
At its peak, it's hundreds and hundreds of tax payments a day that the lockbox gets. And at the peak in office, we'll get 200-300 tax payments in one day.
Do we use lockboxes for any other payments?
But you can send, and
No, do we as town use other lockboxes for other payments? For excise tax or whatever,
yeah, it's the same lock.
same lockbox, okay.
City Hall systems, we use the exact same lockbox for your personal property, motor vehicle.
And then they send you a file and you just upload it to community.
Yes, every day.
And that's, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but when we look at the budget, the lockbox service is one of the line item in that budget, so, we can kind of. I want to say, grand, maybe not even 20. For all that work. Versus having to do it in.
And does that bank have some of our other accounts? You
The
mentioned.
lockbox is actually both lockboxes. The only bank account we have is that bank is the only.
That bank, it's just lockbox.
Yes, and they are normally in a not interest bearing account, and then we open up a fiscal market account, and then they sweep the money out every single day.
That's one.
So that earns interest.
I have a question on the tax bill. Do people ever ask about, I know some towns in Massachusetts, when you get your tax bill, let's say it's $1,000, they'll say 200's going to fire, 100's going to police, 300's going to school. Is that a good, do people ever ask about that? And is that helpful? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, that's what the budget really is
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, there's thing that in other states, a lot of it's statutory. And it's been a while, so I think I'm still writing this, is the format of a tax bill is promulgated by the state. We don't have an ability to change that. Our bills have to get approved to be a certain look and format. And the state doesn't provide for that breakdown.
Well, it's weird because I used to live in Mansfield. And I thought I could swear they used to break it out.
We could do an insert.
So I went to my 2013, that's my last Mansfield tax. And it had the bill and then it said your tax dollars and it has police, fire, trash, DPW, education and all other. And can I just tell you, education was 65% of our taxes. So we are really lucky.
Well, we can look into getting them on the bills.
I mean, I don't know if it's a
I've
good.
never seen that before, yes.
I've never seen that.
I think it would pose more
Question, yeah, that's what
and
it's.
criticism than why is fire getting more than
Right.
police when the police are the one?
So I say it could be a good thing or a bad thing if we just put it once a year in the budget and not everyone looks at it. But if people see that, yeah, you gotta do it.
Okay, we can throw this away now.
Yeah, it actually gave me comments last year. You had the dollar bill. And we had the dollar bill
Yeah, you
image
did
that
that.
kind of broke down.
Yeah,
how
It's in
the-
my bag, yeah.
So we could even break it down. I'm not sure how detailed I can break it down, but so I do that anyway as part of the budget process. When you look at the budget, how much, here's the budget is $39 million. And here's how it went. So we do see that as a finance committee, but it's not necessarily published easily to the taxpayers, I guess. I guess the other thing we could do, Cam, is if as long as there's no extra cost to it, make that dollar bill into a tax bill insert.
I was thinking that.
Might be easier than manipulating bills. So that involves changing munis and the printer and all that stuff.
Right. So, yeah, that's something worth looking into, definitely.
Yeah, but it just, like you said, I wonder if it just will create more.
Questions?
Jabbers, questions, complaints. It was nice to have.
Okay, so you'll see the delinquent list on all of the tax collection slides. That is something we maintain. That's the Mass General Law that allows us to withhold permits, things like that, beach stickers, if people aren't paying their taxes on time. So that's another really good tool. that we use that results in a lot of people paying there, especially motor vehicle, and personal property tax bills. Next slide. So personal property tax bills go out at the same time as real estate bills, and they're assessed on businesses and second homes, vacation homes, basically. And we receive a commitment, just like the real estate taxes from the assessor, and it goes through that same process. And we do issue demands, but we obviously can't take homes for personal property taxes. So that really is the end of the collection process. Interest continues to accrue and they can't get any stickers or permits in town.
The ramifications of not paying
Correct.
are, what can't they get?
All beach stickers, dump stickers, certain health permits,
Building permits.
building permits.
Building permits.
Dog
Work
licenses,
licenses, looks, yep, dog licenses, everything we do.
that would hurt.
And is the tax, is that 1% of the assessed value of the house, or what,
Of the building.
of the assessed value of the building,
Yes.
not the land, you're
It's
saying?
based on that, using that it uses the same tax rate.
So it's
Actually,
what,
it's different, where we split tax rate for the first time, this time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, the end of what you said.
We have it's based on 1% of just the building value, and then they use the personal property tax rate based on
No,
that.
okay,
Yeah, that's why it's such a small bill, so you know, it's a percentage of a percentage,
1% of the building.
right? Next slide.
Could you explain the next to last line on that slide?
The back.
Yes, the demands being issued, just like the real estate bills, after they're not paid for a certain amount of weeks, we issue demands, which comes with a fee, and it's a separate mailing.
Thank you.
Next slide. So, and then there's motor vehicle and boat taxes. These are a little different. The boat taxes are issued once a year, but motor vehicle taxes are issued up to 8 times a year. The big ones come out mid-February to mid-March, but all those transfers, cancellations, purchases that happen throughout the year are picked up by the RMV, and then they send us files, which result in more bills. So the RMV is really the key point of information for all motor vehicle bills. People come in a lot to try to change their mailing address for their motor vehicle bills. That's not even possible in this building. They have to do that with the RMV. So that's a question that we have to answer a lot. So these are printed by a different printer, Kelly and Ryan, who is also our deputy collector. So these bills, we issue demands just like we do real estate and personal property bills after they're past due for a certain amount of time. And then we issue warrants or a notice of a warrant, which is another step, another mailing. And that's the stage where they're actually transferred over to our deputy collector. And the deputy collector is the only one who can collect those motor vehicle bills. So any previous year bill would be with the deputy collector. Even some current year bills if they're that overdue.
Now, the deputy collector, that's a point that the deputy, is the deputy that flags it at the registry.
Yes, yep, that's the next step. After warrants, they will flag at the RMV for a non-renewal, and you won't be able to get your license without paying the deputy collector. And once you pay them, it takes 3 weeks for us to get the money. And we can't do anything about the RMV flags, so it ends up being more of a problem.
One question, you said the biggest question it sounds like the biggest question you get is whether or not people can do certain pieces of business here when actually it has to be done at the registry. Did you guys ever think about putting up a list of FAQs to sort of begin to mitigate that?
We do have some, I'll look at my my questions on the treasurer collector part.
Sounds like it's the number
FA.
one question that people ask and
It is, and it's
probably
people,
takes a lot of time for
Put
you
it on the
guys.
website or something.
Yeah, I'm talking on the website FAQs.
and they are able to make all those updates with the RMB online at least, so we're not sending them to Yarmouth, but it's really twofold. You have to do some things with the RMB, and then some things when it comes down to payment, you can't pay us or the RMB, you have to go pay our deputy collector. So,
Yeah, and the other piece of it too, for a lot of us folks here, a lot of the business at the RMV can be accomplished at the AAA office with I shouldn't say that too loud, with way fewer lines, way easier. Yeah. So,
And actually, in Canada, I made a note to follow up, but even signage outside our office, if, you know, we have enough room and it's some of the frequently asked questions or frequently provided answers, I should say, that was on sign, it might be a helpful tool for you guys. So it's sometimes it's easier for people to see it on a sign than receive the bad news from you in person, you know, it just helps to de-escalate sometimes.
and I know you're not allowed to put inserts in a lot of these pieces of mail, but if you had a list of FAQs, when you send this stuff out, it might help
The
people to
tax bills?
understand that, you know, you want to be helpful, but it's not your swim lane, so
right,
to speak.
good insert. So inserts.
So I have another question. How much do we spend on outside printing?
I honestly haven't even seen the bills yet. This is the first time I'm sending
I
them.
should have brought the budget with me, but let me see if I can look at the budget book from last year on this website and I can give you.
No, you
In a
don't have to
minute.
give it to me now. But
Once I pay the bill, I'm sure I'll remember the amount.
and we use a different, Kelly and Ryan are the same people that we use for the
Right,
real estate.
yeah, Kelly and Ryan is kind of
Why is that?
the go-to for all things motor vehicle. It's what was set up.
It's just,
before I got
it's niche. Kelly and Ryan's a deputy collective service as well,
Oh,
and Kirkland doesn't do deputy collections.
Correct.
And deputy collections are more prevalent on motor vehicles, so it makes sense. As that business evolved over the years, they do the printing and the issuance of motor vehicle and boat excise bills, and then they'll do the follow-up collection of it.
Something the previous treasurer collector was considering was having our deputy collector collect real estate as well at a certain point.
I'm just wondering whether if you had the same firm doing all of it, it would be cheaper. Get a deal.
I don't think so. I think I've had that conversation with Mayor. There is a niche, there are different niches and they're different,
Okay,
you know, skill sets.
Putting all your stuff in one bag.
They're set up to do this.
The laws and the billing
Yeah.
process of each of those are just different enough that each business has developed separately.
thank you.
I just mentioned the Driver Protection Act at the bottom there because we do need to confirm a lot more personal information before giving out motor vehicle bill information. Because of that act, because someone was basically found using a motor vehicle bill. And it was a criminal situation, so that's why this act came out. I believe it entered, well, it doesn't. Next slide. This is just a more concise overview of the excise collection process, including the deputy collector process. So bills are due in 30 days. Demand is then issued. We have a $10 demand fee, but it can be up to $30. And then that demand is due in 14 days. The interest rates are different. Also, statutory is 12% for these. And then it moves on to the warrant process. And the deputy collector does add their own fees. So we don't even have the balance due for these old motor vehicle bills. Because the deputy fees never would show in our system, so we show the interest and the fees and the bill amount that they will end up sending us, but they're collecting more money and keeping some of it.
So why are we only doing 10 versus the ability to do 30?
That would have to be voted
On the demand, so.
Yeah,
It's a fee schedule item, so it's a select board. So, you know, we'll be going through, as part of the budget
The
process
fees?
this year, updating fee, asking everybody to update their fee schedules, so that's something
Yeah,
think of too.
yep, and the minimum bills are $5, so. Yeah, if somebody sees a $30 fee tacked onto a $5 bill, they didn't
They won't be late
receive,
next
they
day.
might be a little more angry than the $10 fee.
It's an incentive to pay.
They might pay it and not, so that they know that if they're late the next year, they're gonna be stuck.
Yeah. Like, these bills will, I mean, unless they move out of the state, they're always going to get paid because they're gonna catch up to you at the RV.
Mhm.
But there's time and expense and demands,
Yep.
so say get it up to at least 20.
Definitely. Yeah. You should definitely bring up.
So Cam, I just was looking at the budget from last year in the budget book. And this isn't the actual, but just in the budget. And so maybe we can spend some more time when we go through it together this year, being your first time on
Yes.
detailing this out, but in total, about $7,000 for
Bridget,
printing.
Mm.
Does that include the mailing too? Do they mail them?
Danielle.
So the postage and all that.
Mhm.
And our lockbox, we had budgeted $6,600.
I can bet that that's going to go up with the cost of paper and just all that type of stuff. It's not going to get cheaper.
That's pretty cheap. It's got supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, so outsourcing these things is pretty cost effective. Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please. And next, again, now these are the reconciliation processes. These are long, complicated processes, so, but I only have one slide on each, and I'm just gonna provide an overview. We maintain what's called a cash receipt book, which is basically all the money that we're taking in. And that is separate from the cash book. The cash book is separated by bank account, and that's really my official record of everything that happens. Money coming in, money going out in any way in the town. So at the end of every month, we perform a cash reconciliation, and we start by reconciling all of the bank statements to our cash book. Obviously, accounting for all sorts of variances and deposits in transit, and I won't get into all those details, but each bank account has its own reconciliation process. The vendor account is probably the most time consuming just because that's where all of our checks come out of. And that's where we pay all of our vendors electronically via ACH and wire. Debt payments come out of that account as well. And once we've accounted for all of the cross-monthly variances between the statements and cash book, then we have to reconcile those reconciled amounts to the general ledger. So we're reconciling my cash book to our financial software Munis, which is kind of, the accounting department's
So that's the
area.
the major, even back in my days of auditing, almost a lot of things could go wrong, but we couldn't have the cash wrong. That's the key internal control in town. And I don't know that people realize this, but the town accountant is, I don't want to overblow it, but especially in a small town, we do have some overlap, but essentially it's like a firewall between the accounting office and the treasurer's office. They're separate, they have separate books and records. So Cam's got his cash book, Tina's got the general ledger, and they record transactions separately. So a department turns over $100, Cam gets a turnover of $100, Tina gets a turnover of $100 separately. So that so hopefully they're both recording the same $100.
Right.
I mean, if that's the only thing that happened in the month and you do a reconciliation, Cam's gonna have $100, the ledger's gonna have $100, and everything will tie. But if they, what I've seen happen in towns is someone in the treasurer office, especially if it's cash, the turnover goes away and the cash goes away, and all of a sudden they don't have the $100 in the bank. But the account has, you should have $100, because the record have it open. And that's why it's such an important strong control. So being very timely in doing this monthly, not only to your own internal records to the bank statements from your cash book, but then the second step, which a lot of towns don't quite master, is that really needs to be to the accountant's ledger. And that's a key thing that would pretty
And does
hardcore.
your office control the bank account or does the account?
Yes, I'm the only person who can touch money.
Okay.
That's a-
All the money comes through our office and all the money comes out of our office.
And there's another key thing, is the accountant prepares the warrant. They audit the bills to be paid. They audit the vendors. And the treasurer's office can only pay out what is listed on that weekly vendor or bi-weekly vendor warrant. So again, that independent reconciliation, the accountant has, here's what should have been paid out versus what the treasurer's office actually paid out. And if there's a variance, that's a reconciliation problem. That's why reconciliations are so important. So periodically, at my level, I'll go look at these reconciliations. What are the reconciling items or the outstanding items? Because at this point, in life, for me, astute of this is a problem or not, you know, it's like something that happens in the ordinary course of business or something that shouldn't have happened.
And does having 60 bank accounts seems like a lot to be a small town. Does that help you or?
It does help, and I said 60, but it's accurate, but it includes all of security deposit accounts, which are really pooled into one. And then all the trust funds we have, like the library trust funds, I counted those separately as well.
So some of them just static and don't have a lot of
Yes,
transactions.
over half of these are just interest every month.
That's it.
Yeah, but a lot of the accounts need to be separate because we take money electronically a lot of different ways from a lot of different payment processors. So all those need their own separate bank account. And then we're mandated to have certain months, payroll, vendor, depository.
And I know you'll get into this when you talk about the investment policy, but I assume you're sweeping those accounts into a managed cash investment.
Some of them. Yeah, some of them we are starting to put we've put both of our stabilization funds into an investment management account with Rockland Trust this year. That's really the first.
Yeah, so we'll brief it tonight and then we'll work on it and then work with Camp. It ended up taking a lot more thought than I thought it was gonna take. But developing an investment policy, it wasn't just an investment policy. I mean, I could whip up an investment policy easy, but I really wanted to have something that was instructional and informative to the treasurer's office. So how much cash should you keep on hand in operating accounts? And if you have, say, it's 6 months. Okay, so if I got 6 months cash in operating accounts, but anything above that, I should be investing in some form or function, some manner. Well, there's lots of different types of investments, right? You're not just because you got, 8 months of cash doesn't mean you take the extra 2 months and put it in the stock market. But, so you've got, cash deposits, short-term deposits, mid-term deposits, long-term deposits. So it's identifying all those things and what ought to be the instruction to our treasurer's office as to what to do and where to put it. So if it's not, so traditionally, if it's not a 5-year time horizon, we're not even talking about equities. If it's a 3 to 6 or 3 to 12 month time horizon, maybe we can do a short-term treasury type instrument. So laying all that out got to be a little bit more complicated and time consuming than I could do at the moment. So
Cash management's fun.
Is there an investment committee or is it something?
that's what I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
I would jump to that. Right,
So
so
how do they reconcile the assessors and the treasurer? Talking about rec, important rec. Monthly?
Account.
Account.
Yeah. Monthly, yes.
Month.
Next slide, please. So we also reconcile the receivables, the taxes, basically. Which is another way to establish an audit trail for our auditors. This is really a task of the collector. Sometimes have separate treasurers and collectors. But it's a triangular reconciliation, so it's really the treasurer to the collector to the accountant. But we're both the treasurer and the collector. So it's my treasurer's cash book to my collector's control book to the general ledger of the accounting system. And it's a similar process. We're working off the total amount of taxes too, basically on a declining balance. And this is why it's so important to keep all of those tax payments that we're receiving into our system within 24 hours. That's our goal.
So this goes, one of the reasons this is a key internal control, this kind of goes to what Ken was explaining about the collection process. So, if someone that it's not uncommon, we don't get a ton of it, but we get a fair amount of people that come and pay cash. They just want to come to the window and they want to pay cash for their taxes. So of course, cash is the most susceptible to theft. So if a clerk or someone in the office were to pocket that cash, they can't credit their tax account. Because if they do that, then the cash drawer will be short, right? So you wouldn't. So you might get by for a bit on that, but eventually Cam's gonna send out a demand notice.
The accounting, it's gonna catch up to with the accounting.
Or the deputy collector is gonna come after you, or you're gonna get a lien on your property and wherever we are on that. Which is why it's in front of me to make sure Cam is always doing these things timely, because, I don't worry as much when I know all the collection practices are being followed, because if they are, things will kind of come out of the woodwork if they weren't done right, so.
In general, what is the amount of our receivables, outstanding receivables in general?
When?
It's in one of my slides, so the financial review.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on.
Over your studies too.
So basically simplified to one sentence, what we're getting at is the balance due of taxes. So it equals the outstanding balance due from the prior month, plus any new commitments, minus all the receipts that we're getting that month, and then the abatements and adjustments that assessing puts in, and exemptions. And then each month we also issue refunds if we don't accept overpayments if someone's paying in person, but sometimes, if you're paying a lockbox and you overpay, they're going to take that amount and apply it to that bill. It's going to be a credit and we're going to refund it at the end of the month. So that's another thing that comes into play with all of these receivables reconciliation tasks. We also are doing overshort adjustments every month, which is waiving money in both the positive and negative direction up to $4.99. Yeah, that's just another monthly reconciliation process that is quite time consuming. Next slide, please. This is the last reconciliation. It's withholding. So everybody's withholdings from their paychecks. We have to reconcile and make sure we're taking the right amount of money, giving it all to the right companies, it's being credited to the right accounts. The percentages are all being calculated correctly. Police educational plans have a different percentage breakdown than any other plan for any other department. And then things like school employees, a lot of them are on 21 pays, so they really have to pay a lot more of their withholdings per paycheck because they're not getting paid and we're not receiving any money out of their paycheck for the outside of the year. So all these things really, we're just taking into account in a big spreadsheet and workbook, lots of different workbooks that talk to each other. And we identify all those variances monthly, and then Brian works to make some of those corrections in the payroll system. I would issue refund checks if they're employees that aren't here anymore. And we'd literally have to mail them their money back. Some corrections can be made through the payroll system, like just in subsequent paychecks.
I just want to know, this sounds kind of like high level, but these three things is so important. I'm just going to keep emphasizing, especially for your benefit. But these reconciliations are the cornerstone of our internal control. The reason these exist is that the most likely areas that you're going to have problems are going to be uncovered by doing these three reconciliations. One small example, I had this, it's probably been 25 years ago now as an auditor in a local town. That it sounds like a small thing and no one ever really thinks of it, even as an auditor. It's like, oh, such small money, why would you pay attention to it? But small money in the scheme of a big town
Adds up.
but it adds up. And this person had been taking self-paying retirees that self-paid their health insurance would bring cash to the treasurer's office. Now, I'll just make up the numbers. I don't remember what they were, but let's say they owe $750 a month for the health insurance bill, because they get retiree, they're entitled to be on health insurance, but they're supposed to pay their half of it. So they bring in cash for $750 and a clerk would pocket the money, and just, because it wasn't part of a tax bill process, it was, nobody really tracked it. So went on for years, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of cash that this person would pocket that never popped out, but never got. Our process here, this reconciliation for withholdings reconciles it against our actual health insurance bill. So if we're paying out for a plan and we're not, as part of that
Getting the money,
reconciliation, seeing the money coming in, that's gonna pop out. Not to say it won't happen here, but it will be caught eventually, because we'll have these variances in our reconciliation that have to be followed up. So the really small things, seriously innocuous things that are part of your monthly process are super important for confidence and accounting for everything.
This is really the majority of our time, these reconciliation and then tax collection and it's departmental money and other money coming in. Next slide. I just listed out some of our other responsibilities in this office. I'm not gonna go over any of it, but we do a lot of other things. And then I don't know if anybody here has used the community comparison tool in the Division of Local Services, DLS, DOR website. I just think it's interesting, so I put some of the slides up here. You're welcome to look at them yourselves. It's all the Cape Towns with the information from last fiscal year.
Well, you didn't know I do this, but it's part of the year-end financial review.
Oh.
I have all the stats.
I just think it's interesting. So yeah, it's that.
Yeah.
I don't know why the.
Population.
Yeah, highlight.
And that-
I just.
Didn't on my.
What?
Yeah, no, I imagine.
52,082.
Oh, 82, I couldn't read it on my.
580, right?
52,082.
Population.
Yeah, I know the population, but the
And you
income.
can see the year.
52,082.
52,082.
Twenty 22.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, yeah,
Good benchmark.
you can skip things, just go through these slides and that's the end of the presentation.
That's the end?
Thank you.
That is the end.
You're earning your keep.
What are your main concerns in dealing with all of
Good
this?
question.
Just making sure everything we identify is corrected in a timely manner, so we're not carrying everything from month to month. And making sure that those three reconciliations are completed. It's really just keeping up with everything.
And when-
Fall behind and snowballs.
And when something gets behind, it's the best and most efficient time to resolve something is as close to possible when it happens. So it's fresh in your mind. And,
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, if we can do it within that same month, that's the best for me.
Right.
I love that.
But, hasn't, we still got a lot of work to do. Cam's still new, so he's got some learning to do. But by and large, we've been pretty good for the last several years, but that hasn't always been the case in Eastham, and it's certainly not the case in a lot of our neighboring towns. These things don't get done timely, and when you have, a year or two or more of reconciling items in any of these three things, clearing them up in order to be able to move forward is enormous task.
Is the workload consistent all year long, or you got peaks and lows?
We definitely always have something to do. The peaks are just the months of October and April, just because of all the
The tax.
people
bill.
coming and making tax payments and the phone calls and everything else.
But there's no labor to pull in and out of the office, right?
No, I do have some part-time help that we've been using for not even for the busy time.
But one of the things
right now.
we'll see in the budget this year, and I have to do some talking with the staff, but you have a floating position, and so it's finding out, we implementing the RTE kind of get back to that a little bit this year.
Yeah.
But once we get back to a more steady state, trying to use that floating position between 2 or 3 offices, probably 2 offices, to provide some support seasonally when one office is busy, and when it's slow, and that person's over there and they'll back and forth. But, sounds like that should be easy to do, but it isn't. So it's something we gotta work on.
Yeah, we're all busy offices.
It's great.
Well, thank you very much,
Yeah,
Pam.
thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
You as well.
Yeah, yeah.
See you around.
Thank you for coming.
And contact me at any time if you have questions about anything.
Any old time, day and night.
Of course.
Be careful about answering that. She says that to everyone.
What's it, 100 degrees in here?
It's 100 degrees in here. It's a sauna. It is a sauna.
So it's behind you.
Is that controllable? or-
Oh, it's 77 degrees in here.
Can you see, can you see it? I mean, I can't see it.
Oh,
I gotta.
It's the mirror on the side of the table.
I don't have that.
Must
I'm
be,
sorry, Rich.
Colleen's, tied up with, tax bill, didn't quite work out the way we thought.
Oh,
So
oh,
she's gotta redo some things, so she's not gonna, she's gonna go back up and keep working on it.
Okay.
But you've got our presentation. And,
do we want to wait for her to come another time, or how do you want to proceed?
not really, I don't think so, unless you really wanna see her.
Well,
But
I've seen her. I've seen her. No, I didn't know how she felt about it.
I think right now she's just busy trying,
Yeah, yeah.
the priority's getting the tax bills up, so.
Mhm.
So you were recommending that we proceed with Lori? Is that what you're?
Yeah, unless you have any questions or want me to talk about her stuff.
Why don't we do Lori since she's here, and then go back to Colleen, because if Colleen isn't going to be here, I'd rather do Lori while she's here than sit here and.
Hi, Lori. Welcome to the hot seat.
It is warm in here.
It is. Does anybody know how to, I know we're not supposed to touch the thermostats
I
or.
don't think we have control of them.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's on a overridden written system.
It's 77 degrees.
Yes.
Florida.
See, that's looking at the thing.
Yeah, he's kind of.
You tried.
Just open the door.
Open the door and.
Yeah, let some
Yeah,
air
help.
through.
Maybe that'll help.
It's the
Yeah,
humidity.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, open the fridge.
We have a lot of.
Open the fridge. And freeze it. Turn on a fan.
There was a lock at one point. I don't know where it went.
So I hope we're not paying a lot for the heat.
I know. They turned off
Trying to
the
get
air
the
conditioning.
I'm sorry.
I've been trying to get the HVAC in this
I
building.
know, but they can't get the AC.
Yeah, it's
Turn the heat on.
He's torturing us so we can get it out of the our reserve.
So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Lori Barr.
Yeah.
I'm the town's HR director. I've been with the town I'm in my 5th year, believe it or not. Time flies when you're having fun. So tonight I thought I'd talk to you, I'd focus on the financial aspects of human resources instead of all the many other things that I do. So I partner with the finance department. I fall under the umbrella of the finance department, which kind of makes sense when you think of it, because HR, my man, works with the finance department to manage the financial health through the workforce part of it and the organizational goals. I do have a hand in budgeting. Rich has actually allowed me to do salary projections for the last few years, which is really important for everybody to have an idea. We use our classification and compensation plan that determines the salary scales and tables and people's increases. It's negotiated every 3 years in our contract and collective bargaining process. We are actually going into collective bargaining in the beginning of November. We do all 5 of our unions at the same time. So that's where we're at with that.
Just a quick question. When you said all of our 5 at the same time, are there towns that do the unions at different times of the year?
Yes.
I don't mean of the year, but
Different
1 year,
years,
this,
yes.
oh my God.
There are towns that stagger it. I'm not sure which one's worse, Mary, though.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It sounds like you're on the hamster wheel all the time if you do them every year, but on the other hand, doing 5 at once can be a challenge when, when you do them well.
Mm.
So it's interesting. You can go to the next slide, Devin. It doesn't quite line up with my habit. So it talks about forecasting recruitment. I do that very minimally. I can tell you, we use Cape Cod Times online. We do not use it in print anymore. The cost is actually extremely prohibitive. It cost me about $400 a month to have 4 job slots on the online portal, which also pushes out to ZipRecruiter and other job boards for me. But a print ad these days is $400 alone for one.
For
So
one.
For one. One ad. would
How
cost me-
many times is the ad? Is the ad in more than once?
Once.
One shot.
It's in one time for $400.
Yeah, once, and
Well,
it's
they're
small.
increasing their rates by $5 this month, so.
Yeah, I stay away from it. I do the online, which the majority of people, if they're looking for a position, are looking online. We also, advertise at other places like Indeed. Mass Municipal Association has a job board, and then some of the higher level financial positions or assessing and things like that, we go through the professional organizations.
Like CCYP. and-
We use
Yeah.
CCYP a lot for, especially with many of our entry level positions, but like, we were just looking for an assistant town accountant. So Rich sent it to the accounting associations for me, Cape and Islands and things like that. So directly targeted to people that are in the field that have some experience too, in hopes that we can get them to come here.
Do you go to schools or universities?
So Handshake is the online portal for all the colleges,
What's it
or a
called?
majority of the colleges. It's
Handshake.
called Handshake.
Oh, I never heard of it.
And so most of the Massachusetts colleges are on there. Cape Cod Community College is on there, so I advertise on their job board also.
And CCYP is Cape Cod Young Professionals.
Professionals.
Yeah.
So,
And actually, we do have a group of us that do go to career fairs. The police department has developed a little recruitment team. Buyers starting to work on that, and so we've got it. And those are the big ones that we recruit for in person, because they have colleges that are specific geared to public safety.
Fairs.
Yeah, so we do Mass Maritime Academy. And we also do Anna Maria College. Anna Maria College actually has a program for fire science that you can get your paramedic while you're in school, which is a huge field for
Advantage,
we need. And they also have criminal justice there, so that's a good one. I also work with budgeting for staffing, compensation, compliance is a big thing that I do. And then I work with Rich to make sure that the budget aligns with the goals of what we need in the department so that the whole town can operate efficiently. You can go to the next slide. So managing staffing within budget constraints. This kind of ties in with back to the collective bargaining. Extremely curious to see how this year is going to play out with the economic forecasts, political uncertainties, the cost of living on Cape Cod, the housing challenges. We have to pay people a livable wage. We're limited by Prop 2.5 of income for our budget, so it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and when you're looking for people with professional experience to come to this part of the world, I just did a paper. In order to afford a house in Eastham, your annual household income has to be $221,000.
Yeah, right. How many people do you feel that you've interviewed that were really fantastic people for the job you were looking for? And that person decided they couldn't afford to come here because of the housing situation?
I've been so lucky, Mary. It's very limited that we've been in that situation. Very limited. maybe 1 or 2 times in the 5 years I've been here.
Really?
Mhm.
Is it because they come from here to begin with? I mean, you're talking about the Maritime Tech School, things like that. Obviously, they might live here, but.
Yeah, we have people that have come from other municipalities,
Yeah, oh, yeah, I know that.
right? So that's.
Yeah, I call it cannibalization.
I call it fishing in a puddle.
Yeah.
We fish it, we all fish in the same puddle, and we, swap employees, it's okay. But I really have not, I've been fortunate to not have that challenge, maybe a little more in the public safety. We've had some young people want to come here from like New York. And think that they want to be a police officer here, and then they figure out that there's not even an apartment to rent really around here. And
That's
certainly
probably the
not
hardest,
an
this
affordable,
apartment, yeah.
certainly not an affordable rate. And same thing with our firefighters. That typically is where I see the challenge the most with that.
Are there any positions that require a person to live in town anymore?
No, we have, even our firefighters and police have a pretty,
Loose
non-restrictive, loose
Yeah.
residency requirements.
But the challenge really, especially in the fire department, is a lot of our employees now are living in the mid to upper Cape as opposed to being in town.
Right.
And so this will be a thing for us, in the upcoming years. Back in the day, when everybody lived in town or the next town over, and you had a callback, it was easy for them to come back.
Right.
And now when people are living in, Yarmouth or Sandwich or Centerville or just off Cape, they're not coming back for callback. And so, we tend to get the same handful of people that are doing all the overtime and all the callback, which is, thank you.
Yeah, they don't mind, but.
Well,
It's
sometimes when it
difficult.
gets to be much, I'm sure they do mind.
Yeah.
They're dedicated, they don't want to leave anybody hanging, so.
It's not good.
So that becomes impactful. So what's the solution to that? The solution is now you gotta have more staff to be on a shift.
Right.
And so that's probably an eventuality facing.
Yep.
So maybe it would be better just to pay the other people more.
That's the contemplation, I guess.
Looming question.
It is. I think I've covered everything on this slide. So salary schedules are based on our collective agreements and personnel code. We do have a personnel code here that does mirror the EEA salary scale and collective bargaining agreements. So even though you're non-union, you still follow a code. And the salary schedules are mirrored for equity, which is important.
Do we ever give any signing bonuses?
We have not yet. There's been discussion of it multiple times in certain positions.
If we needed to, we would.
I'm sorry?
If we needed to, we would, yeah.
I think we have the flexibility to do it if we needed to.
How many other towns near us are giving, I mean, I read about it every once in a while in the paper. About signing
You
bonuses.
see it a lot with again, back to public safety. You see it a lot with public
Yeah,
safety in our
public
surrounding
safety,
towns.
yeah.
We've been really fortunate with our public safety though. I mean, we approved those 4 new positions at police. The last person is in the academy and will be on the road come. They graduate in January, they'll be on the road by themselves in April. So we did really well with filling those positions.
Yeah, space.
We get really lucky. And I think that the town's reputation speaks for itself too. Out in the greater.
As compared to
Cape Cod
some of the
community.
other local towns.
Yeah, I don't want to disparage our neighbors, but.
No,
but our
I'm
reputation-
not gonna name any
but we have a good
names.
Reputation, and we are known to be a good employer, especially our public safety.
And
so I think that
signing
helps.
signing bonuses can be problematic. They backfire in a very, very big way. We don't need to talk about it here, but it's certainly something that I'm sure you guys are
I don't
consider.
think any of us are opposed to it. We had to, but if we could operate.
Right.
In our standard operating procedure, again, the equity is important to employees.
And people have to want to come here.
Yes, that's important. That's important.
Since you're the finance committee, they'll say it this way too, and people don't understand this, and I worked in plenty of towns that are just so darn cheap. Yeah, okay, I get it. You're trying to save taxpayers some money.
Yep.
That's admirable and I understand that. But that comes at a cost. And so, not to say that we aren't frugal, and I think our departments do a great job on what they spend and on what they don't spend on. But at the end of the day, they have the resources they need. And that is a huge benefit for employment. Our employees appreciate that they have what they need and that the facilities are nice. You know, not that we don't have problems in some of our facilities, but at least we have the mechanism and the ability to take care of them.
Mhm.
And it goes a very long way to making a big difference in how, you know, employee satisfaction, to have what you need to actually be able to do your job.
It is huge.
Or wouldn't that be, you see that if there's a large amount of turnover too, if things weren't good, then there'd be, I would assume there'd be more turnover than.
There would, you have retention problems, and
Yeah.
retention is, you know,
Cause you
It
paid,
costs
you
you more
paid
to
to hire,
recruit
you
someone
paid to
than to
train, and now you lose them.
yeah, it does. It's beneficial to retain the employees, the good employees that you have,
Right.
than to recruit and train.
Oh, yeah, it's
a new employee.
expensive.
Hugely expensive.
We can go to the next slide. And then, of course, our labor agreements have financial implications. There's balancing fairness and finances. Obviously, there's organizational limits. Labor agreements affect payroll, benefit costs, and operating. We are so lucky that last statement, sustaining good labor relations. We have some like, there's always anxiety going into collective bargaining because you're gonna sit across the table and you have to convey to the union that we value you and we want to do good by you. But we have limitations and, you know, they're gonna come and ask for what they need. But we have such great labor relations here. I never worry about sending a job description to a union for acceptance or talking to a union about something that we're trying to do. We've totally gone away from the us against them mentality, and we have a real collaboration and partnership with our unions, which I think says a lot about our administration.
So what are the five, you should work with?
So we have steelworkers, we have our police union. The police also have a dispatchers union. We have fire.
Yeah.
And we have the Eastham Employees Association union.
Did I miss the teachers? Are they?
We do not negotiate the teachers. The teachers negotiate through with the district. So we're the Eastham,
Even for the,
School,
even the
yeah.
elementary does?
yes, because they fall under the teachers union.
And are they on the same 3-year schedule?
Not as us.
No,
Uh,
no, they can't remember what year it's up.
So their increases come as part of the school budget, so we don't really see it as much.
That's correct.
I have some questions, I'll call them perks. I know that, in the past, I had some discussions with you about including the preschool cost, and now we have the childcare
Mhm.
that we are providing to obviously the residents here, but also, to my understanding, to the employees, even if they don't live here.
That's correct.
Are there other perks that we have looked at to provide, or other perks that other towns have that we aren't having, we aren't providing, that would be useful, or?
I think a lot of people actually have followed in our footsteps. I think we've been at the forefront of making sure that we have good benefits to offer our employees. We have our basic health insurances. We have the EAP, which is employee assistance program,
Yeah.
that they can get some support through that. Hillary's just rolled out a new program along with the mental health, and while it's originally intended for residents, it's also open to employees. We have a lot of flexibility here also. May not be necessarily written out, but we're known for being flexible with our employees. We do some alternative work arrangements. We still offer the remote work.
Can people be fully remote here?
Could they be? Yeah,
Are there?
maybe for the right person, you know, if we were really having trouble recruiting for a high level position that, you know, we need somebody with experience, probably. but we've been fortunate enough to not run into that.
The town manager.
Yeah, 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 that's right.
That's right, that's
I don't think I want to fully remote.
Finance director, right?
Our policy is up to 20%. Turns like 2 days.
2 days.
Of remote work, so it's a matter of, but, that is dependent on the office, obviously, police and fire people can't.
Oh, right.
Sure, sure.
You can't fight a fire remotely.
Pam might take a remote day, Brian takes a remote day, sure Stacy will at some point, but there's gotta be someone in the office, right, so.
Mhm.
Right.
So we have some, rules around it.
Mhm.
And, some towns, finance director in Sandwich is 100% remote from Florida.
From Florida.
Provincetown treasurer, I think, is remote, Wellfleet treasurer is remote.
I think that the manager in Truro,
Was the one who was in Vermont.
somebody was, somebody in Truro.
There's some towns around it that have fully.
Was it for Vermont, yeah.
So it's not, as long as you've got the person that can do that, it's not bad. Can do a lot of the work I do, I can probably do remote, but I like to be here. I mean, I do other things too that require me to be here, but
We like seeing.
so. I think to be effective, depending on your position, but be effective leadership and to mentor people, you kind of have to be present, so. But if you just need cash books to be reconciled or ledgers to be balanced or AP invoices to be processed, that can happen anywhere. Barnstable, I think, had most of their AP staff is remote.
Mm.
They carry over from COVID, they got rid of the office building off of Street of South Street, Main. And one of their buildings is Angelly buildings, they got rid of it.
Mm.
So I didn't have a room, so I just let everybody, you've been doing it since COVID, just keep doing it.
But what happens to the residents who want to walk in and have a conversation with somebody?
Well, you're not walking in to talk to the AP clerk, so that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The tax collector's office, if I need some.
Yeah. I think we'll see government change as time goes anyway.
Mhm.
But there will always be those positions that will be front facing because
Mhm.
of
They have to
constituent
be.
services,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But there's also the piece that doesn't have to be, so.
Mary, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Rich, this is gonna sort of cut into your thing, but with the headquarters here. Is it? There are a whole lot of open positions. Is that higher than normal? And the follow-up question to that is the current staffing overall adequate?
Good questions. I would not say that our current recruitment or open positions are higher than normal. I think that we actually retain a lot of our employees. And we do a good job of that. There's always turnover. Ours largely is attributed to retirement or completely moving away. They're not like going a town over. Happens occasionally, but that's not our issue. And then jump in.
I was gonna say, a lot of the advertising we might see, it's because of a cascading effect. Because we do have good internal candidates, so they have an opportunity to move up.
Right.
Right, so it happened for community development. Stacy moved from, we advertised for assistant treasurer, Stacy became assistant treasurer, now we're advertising for community development, admin.
Okay.
So it's just, that's sometimes why you see multiple ads and.
And we went through it with treasurer. So Cam was our assistant, our
Right.
treasurer left, moved up. That created the vacancy and actually both positions have been filled internally.
Yeah.
You're completely internal.
Yep.
Which is
As
good.
far as sufficiency, I think that's what we're gonna start hearing about in upcoming years and
Yeah. That was
especially
worked
when
out.
we see the strategic plan, all the things that strategic planning committee thinks we ought to be accomplishing. Now it's with the select board. We even said it last night that they'd like to, it's a laundry list of issues on open space that they want to be taken care of. So they're looking for people. Finance probably could use one more person. Police is good for the moment. Fires, the whole issue we just talked about with fire is going to be rearing its head in the coming years. So, yeah. So it's just a matter of, do you does the community feel like that those are the services that they want, or are they okay with the level of service we're getting? We will get to everything, you know, the maintenance issues on buildings. We'll get to them, just might not be, you know, in the next 3 or 4 months, you know, might be a while. But at least that was a position we added that's paid huge dividends. To having that facilities maintenance in-house, at least some capacity for it in-house, so you don't have to hire out for everything at a premium. And then also wait for it, and then have to be substandard. So, you know, everybody gets sensitive when you add positions, but it's really what are the benefit you're getting from that position, and is it offsetting a cost that, you know, you see the operating, but everybody always pays attention to the operating budget, but they don't realize capital budget could be a lot higher if not for some of those operating costs.
The other thing is with the vacancies, I don't know if people are aware, and I don't know if this is still true. That when you have an internal candidate, you still have to advertise externally and bring in people. Is that still?
So we have it in our collective bargaining that we can do internal only posting.
Right, okay, so that means it has to be posted and, yeah.
Next slide. So this slide talks about our rising labor costs, and we've talked on this already, inflation. So we're back to talking about compensation being competitive in a world where all the costs are rising. So it's a challenge. And I don't anticipate it getting easier, right? Next slide. No, that's it. All right, well, then I thought I had one more. No. Any other questions for me?
What, go ahead.
No, you're first.
What do you think the rate of increase or because we're in getting ready for the collective bargaining for the next 3 years? What are your thoughts on how that's going, how our wages are going to increase on a regular basis, given the current situation we're dealing with?
That's.
Are we all speculating right now?
Speculation. It's gonna be what it's gonna be.
I'm sorry?
They don't want to tip their hand.
No, I think they're gonna be what I put in the financial projections. That's why I ramped them up.
Best case.
And it's not as easy as you know, just saying you're gonna get a 3% cost of living adjustment. You know, because there's steps. So, you know, one of the things that we did last time, and which benefited everybody, is they wanted higher pay in certain areas. And we said, okay, well, we'll give you higher pay, because, you know, we know our comps, and we know that's what we ought to be getting, be competitive. But what we want, we wanted to change in the step schedule. So now, instead of a higher COLA, a higher pay, and a 5% step, that makes it 10%. Now our steps are 2.5 or 3%, which makes that manageable within Proposition 2.5. You know, as long as, you know, if you can fund your budget at the higher rate of pay, it's the rate of increase that causes problems with overrides and things like that. So if we can normalize the pay to fit within the budget, it's as long as that growth can be managed.
Is everything complete with the healthcare providers? I know you guys are in the pool, and I was reading that a couple of the healthcare providers were holding out to have very, very significant increases, and the state had to grant permission, and I'm wondering if that was ever solved.
We're self-insured.
Yeah, so we have
purchased with
administrators, and they have a called an ASO, Administrative Services contract, ASC, I guess. For Blue Cross and Harvard Pilgrim, and we have some fixed premiums, so those are self-insured. But that's their job to negotiate providers. We don't, we just get the benefit, because Blue Cross has lots of fixed premium business. So it's not self-insured.
Right.
So whatever they negotiate for their book of business is what we get to benefit from.
They were one of the ones that the increase was going to be.
Yeah.
So I just was curious. Luckily, you guys don't have to do it, so.
No, but we have to set the rates as part of our self-insured group. Lori's on the
I
board.
sit on the steering committee and the board.
And they go through a rate setting process every winter.
Mhm.
I put in our projection, 12% increase. It's less, that's good.
Yeah. We really benefit from being part of that group.
It's a good group. I was in this world.
Any other questions for Lori? No, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me
Thank
back.
you, Lori. Thank you for all your work on getting folks to
It's
help
my
us out
pleasure.
here.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
You love what you do and we can tell.
I do love what I do, and I love doing it here.
Here in the interest of time, maybe we'll defer on the assessing.
I'm sorry?
Maybe we'll defer on the assessing and then.
Yes, I'll put that on for next agenda.
We did have
Okay,
my presentation.
so you want to do the fiscal year 2025?
Yeah. I'll make it briefer than usual, but I put together a book for everybody. And so this is gonna be sequentially, you keep your books, as we get in the book, we'll keep adding into it. So, you know, obviously the timeline, the schedule and the budget message is kind of front, but in the back has the projections for debt that we've done. And the 5-year financial projection that we went over a month or two ago in here. And now I've added this year-end review. And then next time we have something, we'll add it in. So the next thing up, I think, is the capital budget. So we'll put the capital budget and capital budget tax. And at the very back, in the back pocket, is the financial management policies as they exist at the moment. So I'll get right into this review real quick. I kind of spelled out narratively, go to the next slide. Bullet points summarizing everything that's contained within this. We've had a good year performance-wise compared to budget, but largely due to some big one-time things. Our financial position is maintaining, if not maybe eroding slightly. Our reserves in total went up to 30% from 28. It was 29%. So that includes the wastewater stabilization fund. Without the wastewater stabilization, we went down from 23.4 to 22.9. And why would that happen? Well, our reserves went up, but our budget went up bigger. So as a percentage, the reserves get eroded over time if we don't keep contributing and maintaining them. So kind of held our own there, but it's still better than our target, which is kind of the minimum target that's set by S&P of 16.67. We also have a couple other reserves that really don't help us with S&P, although I think they ought to. We have the IOD fund, which is for people that go out on extended disability. It's usually in public safety. And the reason that's expensive to us is if somebody's going out, we don't have the staffing that we don't have to bring someone back on overtime. So we've been doing this IOD fund. We haven't utilized it yet, but it's to the point now where going to one of your questions earlier, Fred. This is cash in both of these two accounts, the IOD fund and the compensated absence fund, that we need. It's, you know, it's all in the overall till. It's not separately segregated within our bank accounts. But these are the types of funds that ought to be at least short-term investments, you know, US Treasury type stuff, earning a little bit higher yield than sitting in a bank account if they're sitting in a bank.
I just want everybody to know IOD stands for injured on duty, in case people have a question.
And so we're getting to the point now that's a level that we'll probably have a policy that anything over perhaps, you know, I gotta talk to the chief, see what they think, but either 30 or 60 days. You know, if it's under 30 days, then you gotta absorb it within your budget. You should have sufficient budgets to handle that, but if it's a long-term disability, then we can use this IOD fund to help support that cost because it's not unusual. We've been very good. Again, it goes to our chiefs managing the departments, but also the staff and their honesty and dedication to the community. You know, lots of towns and cities, you'll see a lot of IOD cases that just linger on forever. They can go on for years and they're not well managed. In our case, if we have long-term disability, we work with our unions and our employees and see if it's, proper that they become, that they go in disability retirement. We try to work towards that. If they can come back, then we'll work with them to make sure that they can come back as soon as they can come back.
This IOD helps with that process, right?
It
Not
does.
long term, short term.
Yeah. And then compensated absence fund, we haven't used it yet. Because do have flexibility in the budget. We haven't had anybody leave or retire for large amount of balances, or we do kind of limit our liability on vacation, but, it's no unlimited accruals or anything like that, you're gonna get this huge payout at the end. But we do have liabilities probably about $400,000 townwide, which is never gonna hit all at once. So we don't need a whole 400,000, but having about 50% of that is probably not a bad target. In case we get a couple in 1 year, we have the ability. Used to be that when somebody left, you'd hire their replacement. Usually sometime later, so you had that savings while that position was vacant. And the replacement would come in at a lower rate. Well, nowadays the replacement's coming in the same, if not a higher rate. And so you don't have that cushion to pay for a buyout, so this fund will help with that type of situation. We are expecting about $6.4 million of free cash, which is a significant number for us, about 14% of our operating budget. That included what was carried over from the prior year, so it's really only 4.9 that was generated from the FY25 results. And I'll point out a couple of one-time things that added to that or contribute to that. Mary, I think you had asked a question about property tax rate. It's 99% collection rate and a low number in tax title status. So we have a slide that will tell you some more detail on that.
Wow.
We collected 1.6 million in short-term rental receipts. So the unbudgeted amount of that, which is I think about 400 some odd thousand, will be posed to go to a wastewater reserve. And then almost perfection to our financial management policy, where we budget to have our local receipts be about 80% of the prior year actuals. But the actual result came out at exactly 80%. Pretty much perfection. I don't think we started that that way. I think we came into this year's budget somewhere around 86%. We thought we were going to be, but we had some better performance. Next slide, please.
So the 1.2 million of the short-term rentals goes where?
So we got 1.6
1.6.
actual,
400.
budgeted 1.2 budget for debt service. So the policy for the last several years is any short-term rental we do not use to fund the operating budget.
Yeah.
It's been going to a wastewater reserve. So this year we would expect about 400,000 of free cash to go to the wastewater reserve.
But the remaining 1.2 million.
Well, it's been budgeted for debt service,
Okay.
wastewater debt service.
Rich, what's DOR's usual timeline for certifying the free cash?
It's all over the place. Our accountant, I just talked to her today and she thinks she's gonna have everything submitted by the end of this month, which is good timing. Because this DOR is strapped for staff too. And if you wait another month or so, month and a half, then they do not do any free cash certifications because everybody's getting their tax rates and then that has to take precedence. So they don't do free cash, they just do tax rate ratings. And so if you don't get it in about this time, you're gonna wait till January.
Wow.
So
I think 1 year we did, that was it last year that we were, last year was January.
and even if you get in on time, so there's no guarantee. So our staff, DOR rep was on maternity leave. So they're already short staffed and now our person's out, so they
Not have a person that fills in.
they had supervisor, but now they're covering, double.
Other things, yes, yeah.
So, things happen. But the good news is, we know what we're doing, so I can estimate it reasonably enough. And as long as we get it before a town meeting, that's all that really matters. Hopefully I'm never that far off.
So I have a question on the free cash. Essentially, we have the amount of free cash that we have because we basically put our budgets together on a conservative basis.
Yeah, plus some big one-time things, so we'll get to those really shortly here. The summary on that is, to your point, Mary, we're on the budgetary savings side. So it's some pretty big savings. salary accounts, returned quite a bit this year. But a big part of that was 300,000 was the police department budget, and we did not hire 4 officers on day one. We hired 1 in the fall and 1 later in the winter, and then 1 just before the end of the year, and I think we just got the 4th one. So a lot of that $300,000 went unused.
But we pay them when they're in the academy, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they weren't on board even.
Right.
But so people would say, oh, you never spend that much money on salaries, so why do you bother budgeting? Well, we have to. You can't, the town accountant, when they evaluate warrants for vendors or for salary warrants, they examining it for things that are unlawful, fraudulent, or excessive. And what excessive means is something that's not budgeted. So if you are relying on the savings to be there to pay your salaries, that wouldn't be allowed under state law, but also it's just not, you should do business that way. You want to know that every position you got in your position control is funded. Then you rely on the savings, and I know all you guys know, but I'll just say it again for if anybody watches this meeting, is we rely on those savings and salaries and other budget areas and on revenues to generate the free cash that we're getting. Because we have not, since I've been here for 5.5, 6 fiscal years, have not had to borrow for capital items. Because we've been doing these recurring maintenance programs and replacement programs funded by free cash. And that saves a lot of time and effort and money. Doing a bond issue costs over $100,000 a year. So just off the bat, you don't want to be spending $100,000 to buy, $2 million worth of equipment.
Right.
Health insurance, the biggest saving, represents about 54.7%, but that's because I jacked it up last year a bit and planning to do so again because of the challenges we're seeing in health insurance environment. So I would expect that to erode quite a bit. It probably, all things being equal, I'd say I wouldn't like it to be that high. That's quite a bit of surplus. But I do know that surplus over the next couple of years is going to get utilized. And that also doesn't represent, we know 4 new people, the police officers, likely are going to be taking the insurance, which isn't reflected in that either. So when I did the budget for the insurance last year, that included some amounts for the 4 new positions. So that will come down a bit, but it's certainly an area that we could cut back if we need to make something balance. So if you get rid of the reserve fund and you get rid of that health insurance line, everything else came in at about 4.8%. In my mind, we should be around 3.5%. I think that's sufficient for us. S&P wants us to generate over 5% savings in order to get a very strong budgetary rating, which to me seems excessive. And maybe we would do that if we thought we were going to get the AAA, but there's really no need for us to get a AAA now because all the borrowing that we have on tap at the moment is largely through the SRF, which is at a subsidized rate. So it's not like we're going out to the open market and it's costing us 1/4 point of interest rate. If that were the case, and we had $200 million of borrowing coming up, then we definitely would want to get that AAA. Debt obviously continues to rise. It reflects over 19% of our budget. We talked about that a month or 2 ago with our debt projection. We haven't had any updates on the pension or OPEB. Those actual reports are done every other year. So next year we'll get those. And next slide, please. This is just what the budget plan. We had a balanced budget coming into the year. You all know about that, so I don't have to spend any time on this. So we can go to the next slide, which is kind of the end result of where we are with the history of the last several years. So long and short of it is everything closes into our fund balance at the end of the year. And our top line is we're estimating our general fund unreserved fund balance to be almost 7.6 million, which is 16.6% of our budget, which in of itself meets the target of S&P, minimum target. But then you count your unrestricted stabilization fund, and we also have a wastewater stabilization fund. So those are reserves, and you add those up. And so that third line shows the total. And I would submit that's really the 10 million because you don't want to include the wastewater stabilization, but if you're inclined to think you should include that, it's 13.8 or is it 3? So that's just about 23%, 30% respectively. So we're, pretty good financial position. We're about where we ought to be. Down at the bottom there, I show those other funds. And I show so you know that those budget amounts at 45,453,000. So what throws on that first page. So. And the percentages I'm using are off that budget. Next slide, please.
Rich, on the bond rating. With our level of debt, triple A's, way off in the distance.
Not necessarily. I have a slide on that. I'll get to that in a second. This is a history of free cash, showing you what we generated versus total amount. And then the last few years, also I'm backing out the short-term rental because we don't want to include that because we know that's not for operations. It's been for debt or for the wastewater reserve. So absent the short-term rental is kind of what I look at. So this year we got just about 10% excluding of free cash, which is, one of the best results, is the best result we've had in the last, whatever that is. 15 years? Something like that. So.
I have a question. When was, sort of piggybacking on Peter's question, when was the last time the town had a AAA rating, or have we ever had it?
We did have one.
Yeah, it was Sheila.
Yeah, it was,
I'm sorry?
before we really got into water.
Before water.
Water was what it knocked us out.
It did us in.
Not right away, but it's started.
2012 and 13 as well, as a result of the mortgage crisis and other crises that happened. Congress required the rating agencies to change their rating criteria. And so I think it was 2012 substantially changed how they rated municipalities. And so that resulted in a downgrade of a lot of communities. It might have been even East Hampton before water hit. Because the water just made it worse.
I think it was that water. I kind of remember that.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So this just shows where does that free cash come from? So you can see in local receipts, $2.16 million of our 4.9 came from local receipts. About 70,000, we got more state aid than they had budgeted, which is unusual. Usually that's pretty right on. Appropriations generated $2.6 million of it. And various machinations with property tax actually is a decrease. You generally, on a cash basis, you're never going to hit your budget on property tax because it's budgeted as on a full accrual basis, but you never have collect 100%. If you do collect 100%, it takes you a couple of years. So in any 1 year, you're always going to be a little bit short on that. And then we had a couple of transfers closing out some old accounts that contributed to it. So the big ones there that we'll focus on are the appropriations and the revenue, the local receipts. Next slide, please. So this is on the property taxes mostly, and then there's a little line there for state aid. But you can see that you don't collect everything that gets levied in the first year. If you slide over to the right, you see the collection rate on FY25 levy is 97.62%. But then the second year collection rate, because the next line down is prior year levy collections. Usually by the second year, we're collecting the vast majority, and that's 99.35 for FY24 after the second year. So, by the time we get the third year out, that'll be a little bit higher. Then down in the chart on the number side of it to the left again, you'll see kind of the bottom of that array of numbers, prior year tax liens collected. So that's what we collected on. So any of those things that aren't collected by the end of the year get liened, and then it gets treated as a tax lien, and that's why we show liens. And you're not allowed to budget tax liens. State doesn't allow that.
Are the tax lien numbers, would you add them all up to get the outstanding liens, or is the 268 all the amount of liens?
That's the amount of liens as of June 30th, 2025, being 31, representing 260. So that's a pretty good report. I don't know if I have it in the back or not. I was just looking at something today, actually, and I did this in Yarmouth. There's some towns, I won't mention their names, probably don't want to embarrass anybody, but the Cape Cod Times actually did a story about 6 or 7 years ago on outstanding tax liens by town. And that was very telling, me knowing a lot of the players and the different communities. You know, it's like no surprise, bad practices, you know, lots of turnover. Not following through on all the collection things that you heard Pam talk about. That's why I like to have them come in and meet and talk to you once a year. So that we understand it. It's all very important and that leads to results like this. Could we be better? You know, perhaps, but if you were to compare us, our outstanding taxes and outstanding liens to most communities, we're gonna be very favorably compared.
Rich, on page 7, unused free cash, 1.4 million. Where does that sit when it's unused? Is it
Just in our unreserved, general fund unreserved fund balance,
okay?
we typical budget process, so you'll see this upcoming year when we talk about you know, the budget being balanced and how we're gonna utilize free cash. I typically will hold at least 3% of our budget value in free cash as a reserve. And that's to maintain our general fund balance at a sufficient level.
Okay.
Next slide, please. This is the local receipt schedule. And so that's you see the total on line 17, 2,165,000 is excess. Which would be basically saying that we've almost 38%, our actuals are actually 38% higher than the budget. Or another way of looking at that would be that our budget is 62% of our actuals, right? And our target's 80. But again, that includes short-term rentals, which is not part of our budget, and that's line 2. And you can see that how much we budgeted for debt service versus the amount we collected. And there's the 407 baked into those totals, of which we're going to transfer likely to the wastewater stabilization fund. And so down the line 18 again, that's why I have local receipts excluding the short-term rentals. That's a little bit more favorable, more meaningful comparison. 4,000,005, we actually did 6.3 for 1,758,000, which is still a very good result. 33.5. 38. But
Investment income was a
one very substantial one-time item,
Yeah.
line 14, because we had some arbitrage going on, some borrowing that we did for wastewater, and we sat on that money and made sure it was properly invested in high yield accounts. And we're never gonna see, 855,000 numbers. You know, we think, oh, well, wastewater is coming on for 170 million. Yeah, but that's through the SRF and they don't give you the money up front. It's a reimbursement. So we're not gonna get any. So that will be dropping off. So you kind of have to back that out. I don't know if I backed out the whole thing or left 55,000, I'm not sure, but bottom line in that is it's really 4.5 compared to 5.4 actual for about $900,000 of savings, which is about where we usually land.
There's your 80%.
And exactly came in at 20% savings budgeted for that meeting.
Mhm. So I have one question on item number 3, the rental certificates. Was my understanding that we had raised the amount that had to be paid to have a rental certificate from a very small amount. I think it was up to $375, yet we took in less than we had anticipated.
Yeah.
So
No,
were people less renting out their places less than we had anticipated?
been an over anticipation, sure. So starting budget meetings next week with each department. So that's part of what we'll be talking about. The health department is what's a more appropriate number and trying to track down the why on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether people were renting but not getting a certificate.
I think,
Because we raised it quite a bit. I can't remember what it was originally, but 375 went quite high.
I think, anything I probably would say was an overestimate more than. I think we've had a pretty strong rental market and that rental registry list hasn't changed too much.
And Rich, under item number 10 for fees, I know it's not the fees that people pay for the beach and all that type of stuff. What?
That's mostly the cell tower problems that we're having.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the cell.
You get lease payments,
Oh.
leasing cell towers.
Oh.
Communications companies. And that's drying up, not as lucrative as it had been. So actually I have to revisit that with Shayna. We had issued an RFP and had no response. So we gotta try again. But we had talked about this, I think, when we talked about the 5-year budget projection, we had a couple areas where revenues were short. And so in that projection, and this reflective in the budget for that we'll be putting together for FY 27, it's gonna have to reflect adjustments to account for those changes in revenues, which means that we'll probably potentially would be increases in, the offsets goes to tax levy.
Well,
But the overall goal
Yeah.
being,
cannabis.
Yeah.
we always want to be around that 80%.
I was gonna
That,
mention the
that cannabis
cannabis
thing, it
too.
really
and-
went, I know we've talked about the fact that all sorts of towns are putting in all sorts of cannabis operations, and so you can see it here,
They're gonna shake.
down to
And the post
84.
fees are non-existent.
Yeah, yeah.
So, There.
Right, next slide, please. Did a little bit differently this year on appropriations, really broke it down. This is the overall municipal town salaries, town expense versus the school versus debt. Just to see where these savings are generated. Normally, but if memory serves me right, usually we're getting about $1 million or so savings total on appropriations. And now we're over 2 million. And so when we get to the detail of these, we'll see why, but most of it's coming from town expense. Salaries you can't bank on, but we had that extra 300,000 and we had actually now going back to, I think it was your question, Paul, was we did have a lot of turnover this last year.
And then,
When you think about the other departments between, fire had a couple, natural resources and public works had a bunch, not thinking back on that.
right, yeah. Right, because I was saying that, having more free cash is good. I just want to make sure we have enough people.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the one key point here on debt, that's not real, it's real savings, but it's not benefiting us in our unreserved fund balance or in free cash. Because most of our debt is exempt debt, meaning that we added onto our levy to pay for that debt that we expected to pay. But in this case, we ended up not having to pay it. So since we raised extra taxes above the levy, we can't close that back out to the fund balance and it can't become free cash. It has to be set aside and be used to fund the next year's exempt debt. So you don't raise, all things being equal, if you'd raise $8 million of exempt debt, less the 343,000. So it's only 7% that you're raising next year. So you raised it once, you don't get to raise it again.
So have you received the final numbers yet for the schools? Because you're showing here that they came in a little bit under budget, which is something that was surprising to me.
No, it's not surprising at all. I think Tina's still working with, there's a lot of issues over at that central office, so I think she's working on closing that out. But we felt comfortable that this was gonna be the final result. Generally, we don't, that's probably high for them. Usually return on a school department appropriations a few $1,000.
It'll be interesting to see what the final numbers are I know there is a turnover down at the central office on the financial stuff.
Okay, next slide. The next slide is kind of the details of each of those. So this is the salary lines. And you can see I kind of ordered it by top 10 and then all else at the bottom. All else is about where we normally would be, about 3.65%. There's always going to be some turnover, some unfilled position for some amount of time that generates some savings. And usually it is around that 3 to 4%. So except for these top 10, which I kind of give you the reason over this to the right, you had an unusual year. Some things we didn't do in IT. We had an applications manager position that left and we didn't replace it. And we did take that funding and did replace it, but now it's no longer an IT applications manager, it's now the communications director. But at any rate, set the savings on Police is largely due to the 300,000 savings on the fire. Was a little unusual in that. We had quite a few openings that had savings, and I think a couple of those openings that may have been paramedics that got replaced with EMTs. So that was a savings on top of that. But all that being said, the overtime actually was in deficit. And the reason was, you spend more overtime to fill those open positions that aren't earning salaries. So we had an overall savings on salaries, but we had to spend more on overtime. There's a couple of spots, I think the beach and transportation probably, and also natural resources, where they had seasonal staffing issues. We couldn't find seasonal staff to fill a lot of those positions and just simply did not use those budgets.
Yeah. Yeah, there was 3 or 4 of them that
I know, yeah, and that's what Paul was mentioning.
they're just not available.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Can't find them.
Yeah.
Especially seasonal people. I know that we haven't been able to provide the children with swimming lessons. We haven't. Coast Guard, people and everything else.
How's the fire department doing on paramedics? Said they replaced one with an EMT, but
Yeah, I have to go back and look, because that chart I put in last year on position control showing the different positions. I just can't recall exactly what it says, but the number of paramedics is down from what it had been.
Yeah.
But the good news is, I just talked to Lisa, our chief today, this morning, and she actually emailed me last night. We got awarded a grant to fund training for 4 paramedics. That can not only pay for their tuition and training costs, but also cover. So hopefully, but that's a long process. It's nothing that's gonna start even this year. It's probably gonna start next year, and then it takes whatever it is, a year or 18 months to wrap it all up, because that's a big commitment. But we got some extra funding for it, so that's promising. Next slide.
what's CD?
Community development.
Community development.
So same drill on this, all other, the top 10 with all other at the bottom, and again, the all others coming in about where we would expect between 3 and 4%. But you got these individually significant line items, health insurance and energy being the biggest. And you kind of know the reasons why on that. I am concerned on energy. I'm some of the project I've got to work on. If I need to know the timing that some of our solar power purchase arrangement leases are expiring.
And who owns them when they expire?
That's what I gotta figure out. And well, better yet would be, I would like to have replacement in before they expire. Because for instance, the biggest one, the landfill. If that expires and we don't replace it.
Yeah.
Or if there's a lag in the replacement. That provides production for us that we don't have to pay the Eversource Cape Light Compact rate. And so I want to measure how significant that is, because if that goes offline, that would eat up probably most, if not all, of that savings that we're showing there. So the timing of these, the good news is that's a pretty old array. And anything we replace it with now is probably gonna double or maybe triple production. So we have a great opportunity, but the timing of it, could be budget impactful to any single year's budget, right? But that could be something we use a stabilization fund for, a reserve fund for, something like that. Veterans benefits, I just want to speak to that. Historically, when I first got here, we were basically spending that budget, but the last 2 or 3 years now, there's just been no veterans in town receiving benefits, but I feel like we really ought to keep carrying that. You never
Are they
know.
leaving or dying?
Unfortunately, probably have all passed, I believe, is what happened, but, conflicts arise all the time, and perhaps there'll be a time where we have more veterans coming back.
There's still veteran property tax exemptions. That was in the assessors document. But those people, I guess, aren't claiming whatever other benefits.
Well, the benefits are usually medical type of benefits that we have in the district. So that it covers all of them. Some towns cities have their own veterans officer. We have a shared one through the Cape, and they dole out the benefits for transportation and medical costs, things like that. Then it comes charged back to us. Next slide, please. Not too much to say here, we kind of had this discussion, we know when the debt's gonna peak. Based on our projection, we've got a plan to help mitigate that, but as you can see at the bottom line, there's the bottom line. It's becoming a bigger part of the budget, up from 11% in 18 to over 19% now. So, that is what it is. Really, to me, the important thing is what's the projection, how do we manage debt going forward? So I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, but it's certainly one of the things I want to do is when you look at our tax burden compared to other towns, the key thing is, in what life cycle are you in key infrastructure projects, So Chatham's had a water system for, ever, and they've had wastewater for probably 20 years. Now there's all these expansions and things like that have to go. But, so is that, we're a town that just has water and is just getting into wastewater. It's hard to compare that to Chatham when they've had it and let it paid off. So, it would be interesting, going back to that summary slide that I said, municipal salaries, municipal expense, schools, debt. I'd like to see if I can get that data for the other towns, at least a few of the towns that are neighbors, and compare it similarly, right? Because is their tax burden because they have a high debt, or is it because they just have high operating expenses? Right? If we have, we might be really good operating salaries and operating expense wise, but our debt is so high it's pushing it up. But that debt is going to go away. So next slide, please.
Can I just say the thing that I noticed on this sheet is that back in 2019, our debt percentage was 10.94, and now it's almost double.
Do you see this going down in the next few years, the debt service?
Some things go off, but other
The
things
debt
come on.
service is actually gonna go up. The question I think is, as a percentage of the budget and tax levy, is it gonna go up? And I'm thinking that the answer is no, but I would have to go back and check some things.
Right.
Because we have debt going on, but we're also getting, 25% subsidy. We're also getting, start doing the short-term rental, and we have debt drop off that we're trying to jive up. So,
And they're only gonna give us money for the sewer, so anybody else not to take on all that debt at one time.
we didn't get an update yet, but we will later next year in the Barnesville County retirement. The last actual study, we're about 67% funded, down from 75%. If I had to guess, I guess it depends on the timing. It'll be a January 1, 2026 study. If the market can hold its ground, we'll have seen improvement, I would expect, in our funded percentage, because the market was, probably over 23% last year, and it's about 13% this year. So that would mean our assets for 1.6 billion system wide 2 years ago will be something more. Our obligations likely are going up too, but I don't think as fast as the assets.
How many are in there?
What's that?
How many participants?
You'd have to ask. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, just an estimate. I was curious.
One other thing I'll point out here is the 2/3 of the way down, so third line up, the assessment total versus catch up. So 2 years ago, our assessment was 2,261,000. And the catch up piece of that, meaning the piece that we're funding that wasn't 100% funded in history, was almost 1.7 million of it. So the vast majority of that is catching up to get to a fully funded state. We're paying our current costs currently. And on top of that, we're catching up with things that we didn't fund in the prior time. So our funding schedule says that by 2037, we're supposed to be fully funded.
2037?
Yep. It's only 10 years away now.
I know.
It seems so long ago. So,
I'm not gonna be sitting here in 2000,
but
Yes, you are. I can tell, lady.
about 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I don't know, at some point in my life, the vesting schedule was to 2033 or 35, and then they realized they weren't gonna make it, so they changed the law to make it 2037. So when we get to 2031, they're gonna say, yeah, guess what, that's not happening, so now it's 2040, who knows? But at some point, we'll theoretically be fully funded, and that catch-up provision would go away. And so instead of, using those 24 numbers, instead of paying 2.3 million, we're only paying 1.7. So, and we're only paying, instead of 2.3, we're only paying 6. And so the question is gonna be, what are we gonna do with that window?
I'm not gonna be here to discuss that either.
We'll figure out this. I'm sure it'll get. What's up?
Yeah, there'll be lots of suggestions.
We can put it towards wastewater.
That's right, wastewater.
OPEB, wastewater again. Next slide, please. Oh, gosh. And same on our other post-employment benefits, so this is retiree health insurance. So we don't have an updated study yet, so that should be coming out this winter. But I do know that we have, more assets. It says 744,000 at June 23, at June 25, we got 1.2 million. Because that's not really in our control, it's in a trust, we can't take it back, but, we invested with the public trust, so we get reports. And if you look down at the actual performance.
Yeah, I was looking at that, yes, yeah,
You can see 13.51
right.
for this past year, fiscal year. It's pretty good. And 3 years, 5 years, so all those are going up. We've had great markets, so if those assets are improving. Everything else being equal, then our funded ratio would improve, but not everything else is equal. The cost of health insurance is skyrocketing, so despite that positive performance and despite us continuing to contribute to this, small amounts every year, that liability piece is gonna jump quite a bit, I suspect, by the time we get to the next report, meaning that our obligation is gonna our position is probably gonna decrease from where we are today.
What happened in 2021 with a rate of return of 30%?
It's a good year.
COVID.
That was a COVID year.
Yeah.
It went down and immediately skyrocketed.
Interest rate that,
Yeah, it's,
We're not,
It's the market plummeted during COVID and that's back up.
yeah,
yeah,
it's just,
it went down and then went up.
yeah,
are we required
it
to
righted itself.
pay this amount or more,
What am I?
or, the
The
annual
actual-
actual contribution?
No,
It's
it's a pay-as-you-go basis. That's the requirement.
as you go and it's up to you how much you want to pay.
No, we pay. Our retirees participate in our health group, just like
Oh, this
active employees do. And so they have, one of the retiree plans. And, we pay 65% of it, they pay 35% of it.
Yep.
So whatever that is, if we got 100 retirees on a $1,000 plan and we pay 650 times 1,000 or 100, and that's what we pay.
So,
But this is the actual actual calculation of what they think full paying would be.
Right.
Less the app, so we're short about $500,000. Theoretically, according to actuaries, we should be paying $500,000 more. So that's kind of goes back to the same thing on the pension. So the pension, we're paying 100% plus a catch-up. Here, we're not paying 100%, we're paying $500,000 less than 100%. So we theoretically could go up to fully fund our OPEB liability, and then we'd only have the catch-up left.
but the pension, we're mandated to pay that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
catch up and everything. I mean, we don't have any option. This we can put more in, but we can't put less than that.
We have to put in,
Whatever it's the contract,
we actually put in 1,378,000
right?
for retirees. That's the pay-as-you-go amount. We need to pay that. We need to, that's in the budget, that's in the health insurance budget.
Okay.
But they're saying actuarially, because of the future costs and future benefits, that we should be actually putting, in addition to actually paying those costs, should be putting $500,000 with the OPEB trust.
We got other stuff to pay for.
Right. Next slide, please. So here's the Standard Poor's. The same position we've had for the last few years. When I first got here, the management score was strong, not very strong. And budget flexibility was strong, not very strong. So because of all the things that we've done and the finance committee has supported, we're now very strong in everything. The one thing we're not that we can control is budgetary performance. And this is where, there's a lot of little pieces to the main thing that they want, is they want to see a consistent record of returning more than 5% savings. So we're over 5% this year, but not consistently, because they want to see it repeated at 2 or 3 years. They want to see that trend. If that was very strong, I've kind of run the calculations. Because when they changed all these regulations back in the day, I was a contributor to that, so I'm pretty familiar with them. I'm not sure with the wastewater, but with the water, we were considered very weak on debt. If we, up to with just being the water project, if we'd gotten budgetary performance to very strong and the debt still very weak, we would get a triple A. I don't know if we want to purposely budget so conservatively that we're generating over that 5% just to get a triple A. It doesn't mean anything to us.
Well, doesn't mean anything to us now with the wastewater. But if we want to do other borrowing, it could mean
Potentially.
something.
Yeah. Well, it means, and rates are coming down, back in the day, 90s, early 2000s, municipal bonds were 7, 8, 9%. Now you get, so a differential between a AAA and a AA plus at a 9% bond is probably half a point.
Right.
Now we're doing 4%. So how much is that differential? The 4% rate, the differential between the AAA and the AA plus is, not even a quarter, whatever the half of a quarter is. You know that you're an eighth of a percent.
Basis points.
Okay, so I have a question under the first item, institutional framework, when it says uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Why do we say uncontrollable?
There's nothing we can do to influence that. That's basically the regulatory and governance environment where you are. So in our case, basically Massachusetts.
So that would be
So we got,
true for all the other towns.
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and same for the economy. So honestly, I don't understand why Massachusetts is strong. I feel like we have a lot of things in place that are very positive that would contribute to very strong. That's how they do it. And the economy is the most variable of those two, of either of those things. But we benefit from being what's called the Barnstable Yarmouth Metropolitan Statistical Area, the Barnstable Yarmouth MSA. So our economy for Eastham probably on its own, it would be very strong, but when you take us as the Cape as a whole, we're part of that.
So do you feel that as long as the bottom line, the debt is very weak, that we wouldn't be able to get a AAA?
I think we could if budgetary reforms was strong, was very strong. I would have to reconsider that now with wastewater. I'm just saying. Just don't remember that. But I don't think you can get worse than very weak, so.
Hey, that's cute.
But
I'm very weak plus.
yeah, but there are points associated with it to determine what. So you can be, so very weak, I forget the exact numbers now. Might be, if you score between 20 and 30. In this rating, you're very weak. But you are 20 or you're 30 or you're 29, so that little bit could.
Doesn't matter. We should be proud of it.
So the main ones I, take pride in is the management score, because that's the most controllable thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the other things, flexibility, liquidity in performance, we can control those, but we do that with the sensitivities of our finance committee or select board in our community and what they want to do. But there's no excuse for them not being very strong at management. If we're not very strong, then I must be doing something wrong,
So
And that's the highest, that's the most influential factor that you can control.
So the budgetary performance, which is the item just above the debt, where we're only strong, what would we need to do to improve that to be very strong?
2 or 3 years of more than 5% return on appropriations.
We already had one.
And you got one.
Yeah, pretty close.
Keep this rolling. Next slide, please. And this is, I want to get into the comparison, I get all the data for all the towns on the case and various things and kind of compare it. And I'm not gonna go through every single one, it's getting late, but you can read and, but I think what we find is that we're favorable in pretty much every category. Or when I say favorable, I mean, we're in the mix, there's some that are better off in each of these measures and some that are worse. And we're kind of right in the middle plus, I would say. So I look at the combined percentage here on this one. So Eastham has a combined fund balance of 22.23. And you can see, you know, P-Town's at 18.5, Wellfleet's 20, Brewster's 16, Sandwich is probably bad. Yeah, Sandwich is not even.
A lot of them are around in the 20s.
But, you know, most of them are right around where we are. Next slide, please. This goes to our levy capacity. Key thing I want to point out here. And if Colleen had done the assessing, she would have spoken to this. Most important thing to me here is new growth. And Colleen's done an exceptional job of making sure. So what drives new growth? It's getting those building permits and getting them inspected and getting them into the till to take advantage of them. You won't believe the number of towns I've seen over the years that just be late, so far behind in getting that data into their assessing systems. And they lose that. Once you've lost it for a year, you've lost that year forever. The compounding of it.
Yeah.
You know, because if you get, you know, $1 million in new growth, well, next year, that $1 million in new growth adds 25,000, adds 25,000, and adds that 2.5%. And if you don't capture that $1 million, you've lost that 25,000 forever. Now multiply that by an assessing office or a building inspection office not doing a good job on the permits and losing it for 3 to 5 years, if they ever get it up. It's cumulatively huge. And so you don't want to speak out of turn to some, but you know, some towns here that are less than us, that I think you can reasonably determine to be a lot higher.
I didn't hear what you said.
Less of new growth.
Right. I mean, I want to say any names, but look in the middle of that page. How can a town substantially bigger than us with substantial commercial development,
very large
high-end
now.
homes, be less than little old Eastham, which is basically just residential renovations? Intuitively, I know something's going on there that somebody should be on top of. Then you look at the percentage. The percentage is important too. You know, so we get 2.5%, but we also get this new growth. So if you're Brewster and Mashpee, Mashpee's had great new growth. We're probably one of the better ones for the last 5-10 years. They're getting an extra point. So their tax levy is going up 3.5%. And I think there's some years that they're close to 1.5. So if you're a town getting a whole point like Eastham is, that's great. I'm feeling like that inevitably is going to go down. We've been very good. But construction slowdowns, renovation slowdown, then that new growth will go down. And that goes to overrides. Now, if you're getting 3.5% in levy growth, and now you're only getting 3%, cost didn't change, just the ability to raise it changed. So that's what comes up with overrides. Next slide, please.
So Rich, what does that last column mean, override capacity?
Sorry, go back. There you go. Thank you. That would mean, that's the difference between our levy ceiling, which is the maximum that we can raise by law. So Eastham's 125 million is our maximum levy.
So less than 30.
The actual is the 38.
Gotcha.
So our capacity, we got another 95 million to go.
How can we raise
$96 million.
Well, theoretically, you could pass an override for 95,
That's the override.
but you wouldn't be able to get more than the 125. There's provisions that we could go to the state and do stuff, but I don't even know what those are. There's no one that.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. And then here's the property tax comparison.
Yeah, Rich, so I'm gonna have to write the letter this year. And we are now in the top half of like.
Last year. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's why, going back to that summary slide where I showed
Yep.
town salaries, town expense, schools.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd love to break that out for several comparable towns.
Mm.
You know, we all know the reason, it's the debt, so,
Right.
but that would evidence it that, you know, we break this out, it's like. These other towns don't have this debt because they did this 40 years ago. Yeah, but when you look at our operating budgets for salaries, and expenses, and we're, you know, we're on par, but. I bet that makes them feel better, but.
Well, but at least we'll have to explain it,
Explain it.
because up until now, we're in the bottom third or whatever.
Right, so now we're in the bottom.
We can blame the people that didn't pass what they should have passed a long time ago.
I forget what the number was, what was the number I came up with?
Scolding people.
Cost of water, but yeah. But you know, what does change is the second to the last column here, tax as a percent of income. And so theoretically, you know, if you're Chatham, let's see where they are, they're probably the lowest. Chatham's got a low tax burden, but they also have a high income per capita.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so therefore, theoretically. They're paying only 6.61% of their income in tax.
Right, right.
Who's a town like Brewster right up above them. Has a higher tax burden and lower income, it's almost 13, you know, it's 12.5%, right? I would say it says the state average is 13.4, it seems a little low to me, but. That's what it says, I guess. Usually I was gonna say it's around 14 to 15, but. Every year is a little bit different as the income changes and as the tax bills change.
Yeah, that 52 is as of 2022, so,
Yeah, and they don't give you the latest data.
yeah, I know,
It
it's not the latest.
Should use, I also got, because I'm doing another thing, preparing for collective bargaining. So I got the American Communities Study, I think it is, the ACS through the census. And they gave you a number for median household income by town. And so I'm actually starting to utilize that number, which is gonna be a higher number than per capita. Per capita is a little misleading because it's all the income generated in a town by all the people. Not all the people work. Some people might earn a lot, but the median households, 50% or more, 50% or less, that's a pretty more definitive number.
I think at the recent Climate Action Committee meeting that I went to, they came up with a number of for Eastham equating to this 52 of 72.
That's probably using household income.
Solar too.
Right.
It's interesting that the Cape comes in, it says 351 towns.
Mhm.
And if you look at the ranking, each one of the Cape towns is significantly on the low end of that. So,
Yeah,
we wreck the curve. So,
I think that's it. That's the last slide.
yeah.
It's one more.
Oh, debt service, yes. So this one, the debt service, we're gonna see, you know, just look at the outer Cape Towns, the bottom. Except for Brewster, they don't have a lot of wastewater. But Chatham's doing more wastewater, Orleans has a lot of wastewater, Eastham, of course. Wellfleet will be having wastewater. So you're gonna see those numbers climb.
CQV.
Equalized valuation. It's a measure of wealth in a community. So this slide is comparing measure of wealth versus measure of debt. Each resident products well. So we do have at the moment, you know, not only do we have a lot of debt, we're not as big as some towns. So our per capita debt is probably the highest on that chart. Yarmouth historically has been.
Yeah, Yarmouth, 432.
But that doesn't reflect, literally next year, that's gonna change because they just borrowed $230 million for wastewater. Wow. Same with Dennis.
And Sandwich is 370.
So. I like to have these books. I like to go through the projections. I like to do the review, and now hopefully that sets you guys up for, you know, what are we gonna do for this next year? Now you can hopefully have all the contacts for that. You know, if you have any questions, you want to talk about any of these particular, we have to, we will go through them.
Any other questions from folks?
So Rich, you want to talk investment policy? You're going to do next one.
It's a little late now. I did in your packet, give you the financial management policies. I'll just refresh your memories what they say. they don't say anything different than they have. The one addition I wanted to put, I'll be looking for the finance committee to make a recommendation to the select board. But when I do get a investment policy in front of you, say you like it or not, and then you can get that into our financial management policies. And at that point, also like, not beholden to this, I'll just throw it out there as perhaps an approach. If we're gonna do some more with management, I want to give Cam some support. Have some sort of, and I would like the finance committee to be involved at some level. Perhaps have a finance committee. I don't think we want, not finance, investment committee. Now, I don't want a whole separate committee, but I think probably something the finance committee could handle. And I guess it's whatever your discretion is, but I would suggest perhaps one finance committee member as a liaison, myself and Cam as the little committee. And ask the finance committee to approve the whole investment policy. It's just the three people just to make sure that we're adhering to the policy type of thing. So I don't think it's a lot of work, not making decisions. We'll have a investment manager make decisions and manage our funds in accordance with our policy. We're the ones that just meet with them from time to time and make sure things are on. So that's kind of what I would suggest.
When would you be meeting?
It's probably like 3 times a year with the investment manager.
Any other questions on the current presentation?
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Sorry it took so long.
I'm looking at the agenda and I'm looking at my watch. It's almost 6:30. I don't have anything under new business. Does anybody have anything under new business? I know things are going, I'm looking now at item number 8. I know things are going on under all 3 of those items, but I did send out Jackie's town manager report, and there's information about all of those items in the report. So I'd like to not discuss those tonight. And as I said, under item 9, the town manager's report is what I just mentioned, does reference those 3 items under old business. Does anybody have anything else? We'll move the 2 minutes for next meeting. We'll move, the next meeting is October 23, October 23rd at 4 o'clock. So we'll move the 2 minutes, we'll move the assessing department with Colleen. And we'll keep the financial policies update, the investment policy for next time. I haven't looked to see what was originally on the schedule normally for next month.
We're ahead of schedule because normally my presentation I just did is to that.
Okay.
Got a lot going on and a lot I have to do, so I just hit the bullet and got it done for this.
Uh-huh.
So we have, we got a little bit of open next time.
Okay.
Accounting is on for next time. So we'll have accounting and assess.
Mhm. Yeah,
In first quarter update.
the 2 minutes, the Colleen from the assessing department, the investment policy, the old business items, update on the old business items. Okay, anything else that anybody wishes to ask or comment on? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Roy? Do I have a second? Patty? That was Patty, right?
That was it.
All in favor? Aye. And I have exactly 6:30.